And now we present to you America's quintessential iconoclastic anomaly. Wow. In talk radio, your host, Joe Cristiano.
Welcome to yet another edition of Liberty Talk Radio. I'm your host, Joe Cristiano, and I'm also the Chancellor of the University of Logic, better known as Cristiano's Conservatory, correcting convoluted conversations. Folks, it's time for us to take back control of our government now before this bureaucratic, oversized, and self-serving federal government starves us of our property, our freedom, our rights, and our liberty. To do this, we must shed conventional thinking regarding political structure. We need to be revolutionaries in thought, dissidents in action. Only after we recognize what our government is doing to our freedom and our Constitution will we start taking it back. And folks, you know just as well as I do, this program is just about that. Folks, every so often a documentary is made and circulated that when you view it, it has life-changing implications. Now, I know I sound melodramatic, but I'm not. I'm being very honest with you. Watching certain movies, you know, and everyone could remember back when they watched a particular movie, it had a profound effect on the way they thought and the way they viewed life, and could have actually contributed to change in the direction of their lives. We all know of one, if we're old, especially if we're old enough. This has happened to me on more than one occasion. This happened to me more recently. I have viewed a documentary. The name of the documentary is the State of Mind Psychology of Control. To me, I watched it 3 times, and all 3 times it was as if I was watching it for the first time all over again. I suggest that everyone do that. Now, we're going to learn more about that movie. But it's a documentary, because we have on the line with us now one of the co-producers, Chris Emery. I think he's being accompanied by Richard Grove as well as Kevin Cole. They partook in the movie. I guess one was the writer, and I'll have Chris Emery do the introductions. But folks, let me stress this on you. Now, you know, listeners, I don't give you any garbage. I don't overinflate anything. This is a documentary which you can get on Amazon, and it's being viewed here, by the way, in Tulsa at the IDL Auditorium. That's First in Detroit. It's right on the corner, the southeast corner of First in Detroit. Easy to get there on, I think, this Thursday evening, and I'll have Chris give me the exact times and whatever when he gets on the air. But folks, this is a documentary. If you have not seen, you must see. If you don't, I'm coming out and I'm getting you. All right? I'm going to drag you to it. Now, let me tell you how important this thing is. I've been asked to speak to a senior executive group, an elite senior executive group, on December 10th here in Tulsa. And I'm asked to speak, well, on occasion. I had an outline for what I wanted to say. After viewing this the third time, folks, and I never watch a movie more than once, I threw that outline away, and it took me about a minute and a half to reconstruct the entire presentation I was making to the senior executives here in Tulsa. I hope that impresses on you the implications that this movie can have on the way you think and the way you see where we are. Now, do we have anyone on the line now? All right. Chris Emery, are you there?
Yes, Joe. Thank you for inviting us. And I believe Richard Grove and Kevin Cole are also joining us.
Yeah, they're all on the line, Joe.
Okay, very good. Gentlemen, thank you so much for joining us here on 1170 KFAQ, Liberty Talk Radio. If you have been listening, you know I'm a proponent of your documentary. Chris, why don't you just take it away? Why did you even start and embark upon such what I would consider a dark subject that is so critical for everyone to see?
That's a great question. And for the folks that may be familiar with the first documentary that Free Mind Films released back in December of 2011, it's called A Noble Eye, the Oklahoma City bombing, 1995. And it actually gave an in-depth review of what actually happened. And the movie was actually based on the Justice Department's own documents, as well as testimony from key witnesses, search and rescue personnel, law enforcement, and, of course, victims' family members and the survivors. So we took that, and that was just, I mean, it blew out of the blocks. It was an absolutely wonderful success and surprised us, considering that it was 17 years on when we released the film. So after things kind of settled down and the sales are still very brisk, we asked ourselves, why weren't people thinking more critically about that case? And why aren't they asking more questions? So we went back to square one, and we decided to go ahead and bring on, of course, Richard Grove and Lisa Arbucheski, his fiancée, who actually did the voiceover for State of Mind, and Kevin Cole. And we wanted to go in depth on how we are actually from cradle to grave, nurtured in a controlled way by the media, by the government, by Big Pharma, and to do it in a piecemeal and easy-to-understand method. There's a lot of information there, but, I mean, due to the excellent writing of Richard and Kevin, and we had Matthew Hart also help out, and, of course, Austin Green and James Lane, the director, we were able to go ahead and put it in an order that would be easy to understand and also basically tell you why things are happening, how they're happening, and then offer some solutions toward the end of the film. And I want to thank you, Joe, for really giving us a great plug and having us on here on the show. Also want to add that I'm actually in Austin, Texas right now, and your show is coming in loud and clear down here.
Oh, that's great.
Beams all over.
Yeah, hopefully we will. There's a good possibility, you know, if the radio gods are with us, that we will cover a good portion of this country, at least half.
Beams into downtown Phoenix as well.
Yeah. Well, very good. So, I mean, we hope that you get the coverage. But what's important is that we hope that people, when they listen to this broadcast, that they do, in fact, take action, that they don't sit, that they actually do something. It is that important. It is too easy for us to listen and then go back to watching football and having another piece of chocolate cream pie. Those days are over, folks. Those days are over. It's time for us to get up. Rise up. Rise up in action. Take action. I feel like a preacher right now. I'm so damn mad. I'm sorry. Sorry, Chris. I'm just so damn mad. You have no idea. Anyway, we want people to really move on this. If you don't have an epiphany after watching this movie, I suggest you either watch it again or please wake up and then watch it. Okay? All right, Chris. In the beginning of the movie, it says the opening defines habit as the enormous flywheel of society. Habit is the enormous flywheel of society. And you have to stop and you have to think of that one sentence. Habit is the enormous flywheel of society. You know, it alone is what keeps all of us within bounds of ordinance. Keeps us within bounds of ordinance and saves the children of fortune. The children of fortune, those select few, remember, from the envious uprising of the poor, meaning the rest of us. Of course, that was written by William James in the Principles of Psychology in 1890. And we haven't learned a thing since.
That is so true. And in fact, Richard, I'm going to defer that to you. You and Kevin are much more proficient in commenting on this than I would be.
Oh, good evening. Good evening, Joe. Good evening, Kevin and Chris. From my perspective, Lisa and I run a website called TragedyandHope.com. Tragedy and Hope was named after a famous history book. And after being exposed to a great deal of unethical dealings in the corporate world, we discovered some history that we thought people could really benefit from understanding. And that led us to, the discovery of the corruption of the public schooling system, and there were just many layers to this. We had done a series, a 5-hour interview series with John Taylor Gatto, detailing how the corruption of the education system had really instilled a psychology of learned helplessness through conditioned reaction and responses without thinking. And that's the antithesis of what an education should be, which is why they call it schooling. So when we got in touch with Free Mind Films on this project, originally I was just to be interviewed for the film, and I was interviewed for the film, and about a month or so later, they inquired about asking, to help craft the script, because what they found out during, all these interviews and about 40 hours of raw footage was the story was a lot bigger than what they initially had started asking questions into, and they needed some help kind of grasping how does the big picture work and how does it funnel down to an individual, and how can we share with the audience the journey of an individual out of this learned servitude. And once you can do that as an individual and share with others, we think that's the solution, that learning's the answer. What's the question?
Kevin, what's that website again, please?
Oh, this was Richard, and it's
Richard.com.
Tragedyandhope.com.
Okay, very good. Now, the movie covers such a large berth. It is difficult to put your hands around. To me, it was relatively. It was very respectful. It covered the school system, and I think you were very delicate, very respectful of the school system. By the way, I could not have been as kind. I'll be very honest with you. I was, these guys really have self-control. I don't have that self-control.
That's why they didn't have you involved with the film.
How much religion did you think was going to come into this movie, and whether or not religion was going to be part of it?
Well, religion has been a part of human history along with education. And when Kevin and I really got into doing the research, and we've acquired hundreds of books pertaining to these subjects to find, quotes like the William James quote up front about habit being the enormous flywheel. And I'll yield to Kevin to, because he can really illustrate some of the key aspects of how religion has combined with public schooling and combined with the state and corporate government and corporations themselves. I mean, it's all being used against individuals at this point. Go ahead, Kev.
Yeah, hi, Mr. Cristiano. Thank you very much for having us on, and I really appreciate your enthusiasm and kind introduction. My name is Kevin Cole. I am a co-writer on State of Mind, the Psychology of Control, and I've been working with Richard and Lisa at Tragedy and Hope Communications since about 2006. Now, with this film, it does cover a broad area, all the way from the philosophical foundations of control to compulsory schooling and Prussian education, and the psychology of control, dealing with psychiatry and the overdrugging of children, and how this plays a role in the servitude later on in life. It also goes into MK Ultra and unclassified CIA mind control documents that most people aren't aware of. And the goal really was to, try to show people how they could maintain their own individuality amongst systems. And by introducing a lot of these ideas in a way that kind of overcomes the cognitive dissonance and immediate reaction of conspiracy theorists that people might have to some of this material, and really to bring people back to the table where these ideas can be discussed rationally without a prejudgment.
Right. Well, what I think you did particularly. Oh, by the way, it's never Mister. By the way, I don't go by Mister. If you're gonna go,
thank you, Joe.
Well, I have a bunch of clowns here in the studio here. They're watching. That's why you see me laughing.
We never call him Mister.
He's Your Highness, please.
Your Highness.
No, it's Your Eminence. Okay.
Emperor.
But I tell you, let me just a word to the wife. Don't ever hire anyone from the University of Clown College. This is what you get. All right, but I thought that you drew this very fine line. I mean, because so many people would be absolutely turned off if anything was said about their particular religion in any way, shape, or form. I mean, if it was complimentary and they didn't agree with it, it would be a turn. And yet, you seem to have escaped that beautifully. So, I mean, if anyone's afraid to listen to this because they're afraid that they're concerned that it may be disrespectful to their religion, let me assure you it will not be. You have to draw your own conclusions from your own faith and where you came from. And I think that was one of the gems of the movie, in that you did not specifically target any particular religious ideology per se, and thus losing a good portion of your audience right there, right, wrong, or indifferent. And I thought that was very, very delicately handled, very well done, and well integrated. How you did that, I'll tell you, I don't know how you did that, how you got away with it.
Right. Joe, this is Chris. If I may make a comment on that.
Sure.
Back in August of 2012, I was privileged to be able to schedule the trip. It was an extended 10-day trip. We literally went from East to West Coast, interviewing Richard and several others on the East Coast. And all of the questions that we emailed, and Richard can vouch for this, to each of the interviewees, we were very careful not to include the religion, because we didn't want that to be a detriment. Because this was our initial offering of this information in such a detailed manner. We went from the Oklahoma City case, which is more macro. this is or micro, and this is more of a macro treatment. So you're right,
Right.
and that was deliberate in the fact that, my God, that would create a completely a brush fire that we didn't even want to start.
Absolutely.
And
yeah.
that would have detracted from the message. So
Yeah,
you are correct.
You can leave that stuff to me.
Hey, Chris, before we get too far along here in the broadcast this evening, how about a website for the documentary itself? Is there some place people can go to right now and check that?
Yes, and it's you can go to the Infowars.com, InfoWarsShop.com, and then just scroll down, or you can type in State of Mind, Psychology of Control, and it's also offered in conjunction with In Ovalai, Oklahoma City, 1995. There is a package discount on that, and in fact, they're based here in Austin. They did a beautiful job of helping us promote the film initially, and so we want to give them kudos and credit for that.
And that's Infowars.com, is that right?
Yeah. Yeah, InfoWarsShop.com, or if you want to go to StateOfMindMovie.com, that should we're going to have that pointed to the website also.
All right, could we? Are we due for a?
Yeah, we need to take a break. But
Let's take a break. When we come back from the break, Chris, I would like for you, because our audience has no idea what we're talking about, quite frankly. We're talking because you produced the movie and I've watched it several times, but we need to visually walk through, or give a visualization
Theater of the
what
mind.
of what this book is all about, and walk through that movie when we come back from our break. Okay. We have with us this evening the creators of the documentary State of Mind, The Psychology of Control. On the line we have Chris Emery, Richard Grove, and Kevin Cole. And we're talking about a movie. Unfortunately, the first portion, we're talking about the movie as if everyone knew what the heck we were talking about. Can we get down to basics, and could you tell us what the movie is about and walk through it for us? We know that's going to be shown here in Tulsa, and anyone in the Tulsa and the surrounding area on this Thursday, December 5th, and tell us more about that, exactly where it is and the time and stuff like that when we get through with that.
Sure.
Okay?
The IDL Ballroom. And it was actually a good connection I had on Facebook. She came up with the idea of having it at her establishment, very fine reception hall and a music venue. So we set it for December 5th, this coming Thursday. I believe the doors open at 6:30, and they're going to start at 7 or 7:30, depending on how the crowd fills in. And cover charge is only $5, and that portion of that, from what I understand, will be donated to charity. We found it also on Saturday, December 7th, at the Circle Cinema. The film has been accepted to the United Film Festival,
Right.
and there's one of 6 venues, and this is a worldwide film festival. They have them also in San Francisco, L.A., New York, Chicago, London, and Tulsa. And it was started by Jason Connell, who's actually a native of Tulsa, who, oddly enough, is actually our agent in L.A. now, and he's parlayed both of our films, the Oklahoma City bombing film, as well as State of Mind, for international distribution through one of the biggest and best, most proficient distributors in the world, also based in L.A., called Cinedigm. So we just ramped up on both of these movies, and thanks to Richard and Lisa and Kevin and the rest of the crew, there's no way we could have done it without their help.
I know Alex Jones was really big on this movie. He was promoting it for some time.
Yes, and Alex and his crew did an absolutely beautiful job for us. So there were a lot of people that stepped up to the plate once they saw the quality and the content of the second movie. Bam! I mean, they were greenlighting this thing on all fronts, and we were very pleased with the success of the first movie. This second movie is going to eclipse that and then some. So we'd love to have anybody interested and to come on out, support us, and we're going to actually also have DVDs for sale, autograph, and we're going to do a Q&A after the both
Okay,
sessions.
I'd like, in interest of full disclosure, Chris, I want to make certain that every one of my listeners understands if they do not show up on Thursday night to watch this movie, they will be severely punished. They've been forewarned, okay? Now, Chris, now tell us about what is this movie about? If someone just turned on the radio, what is this movie, The State of Mind, The Psychology of Control, all about?
I'm going to give you a quick overview, and then I'm going to defer to Kevin and Richard because, like I said, they're the ones that actually did the writing on this. There's no way I'm going to take credit for that.
Okay.
I'm not even going to begin to. So anyway, what it is, it offers a historical perspective on how we are literally controlled from the day we were born till the day we pass away. Whatever it is in education, media, on the products we buy, what we live on, how we spend our money. I mean, it's absolutely amazing, and there's a historical precedent to this. It's no accident that things are advertised, and we are told information, fed information, the method that we are today, but because it was based on what actually worked, what was proven several hundred, if not thousands of years ago. And that's where Richard and Kevin really stepped up with Matthew Hart and just laid it all out in a beautiful setup. So, Kevin and Richard, you want to take it from here? Go ahead.
Well, I would just simply say that state of mind, the psychology of control, is the tip of the iceberg. It is not the end to, sometimes you go see a movie and that's it. You're done and you're like, what else, is there? This is representative of hundreds of hours of content that we've produced and researched, and it's basically refined and distilled down such that it's an introduction. And it's a story that's ongoing. It's a story that you're a part of. It's a story that we're all a part of. And we are being brought up within an unsustainable society. It's not accidental. It's planned out. It's on purpose. We provide proof and all sorts of evidence in the movie. And like I said, that's the beginning of the evidence, not the end of it. And it's like, fish in water. The fish doesn't understand what water is until you pull them out. A documentary film gives you the chance to step out and look at it from an objective perspective, not invoking emotions, not judging what you think the presentation's like, and just taking the evidence, because we're not trying to convince anybody. We're just simply saying we have found credible evidence which forms a dot. We found many of these dots. We've connected them together into a picture which represents our reality more so than what we're being taught in school, more so than what we're hearing through corporate news and all of our families are being subjected to. And it's not conspiratorial. This is human nature. We, survive on a planet here with other people. Some people like to plunder our production. That's the story of human history in the macrocosm. How it applies to us today is how to learn about these systems of control, because by learning about them, you become inoculated to them. By asking questions, you remove your mind out of the anesthetized state where you assume that you have knowledge without asking questions, and you actually start to learn. And I think that's a beautiful thing. It's a natural unfolding of the mind that has been stifled by our culture. And by creating art and media, we hope to inspire people to grow in the right direction.
Right, but could this be good, or is it all bad?
Oh, it could be great. I mean, the whole reason that we make media is because we see all of this positivity. We see the positive potential of an individual because we see how much money and propaganda is being used to harness them down. And we said, wow, if that much resources are being used to hold back our natural, innate, characteristics and talents, just think of what any individual could do once they start to apply their mind to the situation.
Yeah, but I mean, is there any good good about someone else concocting an environment which then influences you to a point where it becomes mind control? Is there any good in that for the individual?
Well, that's a good question. That comes into questions of morality and the difference between right and wrong, and the difference between fact and fiction. And these are differences that every individual should have the responsibility to take upon themselves and not assume they're getting the truth through highly funded and centralized resources.
We receive messages all day long from television especially, and I guess I know that you do present what people see and how the mind works. And I'd like you, in fact, we're not going to have much time. That'll take a little bit of time, but when we come back from our hard break, I would like for you guys to talk a little bit about how television, especially, has played its part and how it affects the mind, and as a result, how it affect our culture, and what was the result of our culture as a result of all of this, and whether there's any good to that or if it's all bad, and what we should do about it. Hold on, you have a question, Derek? There's someone here.
How would you define someone that intelligently is against the education system, that knows that it's a bad thing? How would you define that? What would you do about that?
Well, any system where the taxes that run it are being taken at gunpoint, basically, because they're involuntary, and the schooling as well is compulsory. It's involuntary, and as long as we have a society that okays slavery in any of its forms, we're going to continue to fund with our tax dollars immoral actions. Just like, in the news at the top of the hour, our tax dollars are going to fund drones to hunt pigs. I mean, think about the irrationality of what's going on and the misuse of our capital that's been.
We're going to ask you, excuse me, I'm going to cut in because we have to go to our hard break. We don't have much choice on that. We can't flex the time on that one, but hold that thought and we will be back. Folks, you know, I'd like you to call 855-866-1170 with any of your questions. That's 855-866-1170. Any questions you have, please call in. Let me make a comment before you guys continue. I have been really down on our school system now for some time. It seems it weaves its way into every broadcast, regardless of what the subject is. And here's a comment that I've made at least a dozen times on this program. And that is the only grade that we are, when we go to school, that's worth anything. And after we complete this one grade, we need not go to school. And that's kindergarten. Because in that grade, we are asked to think for ourselves. We're asked to be imaginative. We're taught not to take what is not ours and to be good to others and not to hit others. In other words, the real basic, but we are not taught control. As soon as we hit the first grade, it's memorize, obey, respect, and respond. How off base am I?
I
This is
don't
Rick.
think you're off base at all. Go ahead.
Go ahead, Kevin.
Yeah, this is Kevin here. I would say you're not off base at all. The word kindergarten, if you look into the history of it, goes back to Friedrich Froebel, who was a student of Johann Pestalozzi. Now, when you look into Johann Pestalozzi, you'll find that this individual was a member of a anti-authoritarian sect during the Holy Roman Empire called the Bavarian Illuminati. So the kindergarten is a kind of a response that is derived from Rousseau to a already existing education system at the time. So they were looking for a new way in which to rear children within a state system or within a state that was trying to create a specific polity. So this is where kindergarten comes from. So I don't really think you're off base there at all. It's really about it's really about getting the children away from their parents into an environment where the state or a secular authority would have the control of their earliest movements. Now, doesn't mean that it's all a bad thing or that socialization isn't great for children, but when you really have to pay attention to the foundations and how that's being brought in. So I think you're on point there.
Well, you know, it's interesting because I attempt to speak with educators on our school system on a high level. For example, I might ask a teacher of many years, usually they're seasoned teachers, and I ask them, how do you accommodate yourself? Your self-accommodation, the revisionist history that is presented to you year after year. They look at me and they know what I'm talking about. I have to say revisionist history, and they know what I'm talking about. The response is anger every single time. I mean, we're not having a disagreement. We're not arguing or screaming at one. I said, I'm just wondering how you handle that and how you handle the revision of history year after year. What do you tell your students? They get angry and they refuse to answer the question. I've done that over a dozen times.
Yeah, this is Chris. Joe, go ahead. Finish your comment there.
Oh,
yeah, this is Kevin. I was just gonna...
Okay, yeah. Kevin, go for it.
Yeah, I'm sorry. I was just going to say, I think you made a great point there, and that's something that people are struggling with today with the Common Core or the Common Core curriculum, in which they're trying to institute the same education across all counties and municipalities in every state in the country. So I think the manipulation of the history within schooling and how that takes place year after year is really masked by the actual history of compulsory schooling. And if you look into an individual by the name of John Taylor Gatto, who we had the fortunate opportunity to help interview for the Ultimate History Lesson with Tragedy and Hope Communications, John Taylor Gatto has found that the history of American education is really a derivative of Prussian schooling, going back to 1806 and the later solidification of these statutes in 1819. And if you look back even further, it goes back to Frederick the Great. So I think once people start to look into the history of bells and whistles and shuffling kids between classes and the extension of childhood, as well as the extended adolescence that goes in and out of the public education system, the better off we're going to be to stand on common ground in which to ask the relevant questions in the first place. Because the public schooling in this country really goes back to Horace Mann and his notes from his trips over to Prussia, where he decided that without even seeing this school system intact, he wrote back and said to the Massachusetts School Board of Education that this was going to be the one that we need to adopt in the United States, because they knew that they needed to have a very strong centralized educational authority. The problem is they didn't listen to Thomas Jefferson, James Madison, Noah Webster, or any of the founders who were against this strong centralization, which was known as a unitary ratio studiorum, or a plan of studies that would be nationalized. They wanted it to be left more to the states. And when we talk about that, you really get into the ideas of nullification and the 10th Amendment movement. So I think that's a very relevant point.
Kevin, this is Gary. You said extended adolescence, and I've always had the theory that, and I think this is what you're talking about. I've always had the theory, other cultures get young men and women ready for life so much sooner than what our culture does. We, probably an American Indian in the 16th century, probably by the time he was 16, he was a brave hunter and could handle his own family. And today we talk about these people as little baby children that can't do anything. They got to get another 6 years of education, and they got to live at home, and their parents need to handle their health insurance. And and this is my theory. I think it's a bunch of bunk. I think we need to get people aware about life and start living life and start taking responsibility at a younger age. But that's just me. Is that what you were talking about when you said that?
Yeah, that's definitely what I'm mentioning. You can learn more about this from John Taylor Gatto in the Underground History of American Education. But with the extended childhood, I mean, you look at it now, and people are going to school up until 24, 28, 30 years old, and this not necessarily the way that it was originally intended to be. Now, we've gotten a long way away from the intentionality of the founders, when we're in the situation we are today. But the centralized schooling idea really takes the oral tradition and the familial tradition that is passed down, through practical arts and mechanical learning and learning specific tasks. It doesn't mean that you don't have access to the same socialization, but it's really backwards when you look at how this all came about. So the extended adolescence, with children going to school with people of their same age for many, many years, and it kind of separates them. Well, my mom went to a one-room school, and she was learning what 8th graders were learning when she was in the 5th grade. And that helped, that helped people out immensely back then. But that's just not how it's done today.
Yeah. It's interesting when anyone criticizes what we consider the status quo, the school system, you name it, any system that we have, and forget about the criticism, even questions it, or questions a decision by our leaders, so to speak, you have been brainwashed to believe that this person is anti-American, may even be a terrorist, when in fact you're being most American and you're abiding by the precepts of the Declaration of Independence and the Constitution by doing so, and you can't find 1 out of 100 that recognize that. Am I losing my mind, or is this what you found out in filming this thing, developing this film?
Hey Joe, this is Rich. The simple truth is that before we're sent out to school, before we're even sent into kindergarten, we're not taught fact from fiction. We're not taught a method to clearly discern fact from fiction, to cut through the confusion and unknowns of every day, because that would let us live in self-reliance, self-confidence, and self-esteem, which our society doesn't want. They put us in a state where we don't know fact from fiction. We go through school assuming that the declarative sentences add up to knowledge, which it doesn't. This creates the extended adolescence, or cognitive dissonance, which is then pathologized and prescribed drugs for, all those school shootings are tied back to the same type of psychotropic drugs that are widely being prescribed for no good reason. And so what you see today is we've inherited a problem. When MTV came along, it took cinema and turned it on its head. It said cinema will now be in 3 minutes. They're going to be fast-cutting. That creates ADHD. And then it moved from MTV into all the movies that we see out there. And it's hard for anybody of that age group to hold their attention substantially. We've lost the rites of passage, as we kind of mentioned. And those rites of passage have to do with eradicating fear through learning yourself and about learning about your environment, which is all the things that we bring to bear in State of Mind, the Psychology of Control.
Folks, we're talking about we have the the producers and the writers and the directors on the line of the documentary State of Mind: The Psychology of Control, which will be shown here in Tulsa at the IDL Ballroom. That's at First and Detroit, southwest corner. In fact, it's right across from that big garage. It is, And what time does it start? I've got
doors open at 6:30. The show starts at 7.
All right, 6:30 to 7. Okay, I will be there. I will drag everyone that I can over there, and please do be there. This is something. This is something. Listen, anyone who shows up and introduces themselves to me, I'll tell you what, I'll give them a free Liberty Talk Radio T-shirt. How about that? I'm going to go out on this. May cost me a couple of $100. You know that, a few $100. But I'll do that. But I'd like to see people there. I want to see people awake. Now hold on, Derek. You had a question.
Yeah, I feel like that a lot of what happens is self-entitlement becomes a problem because they teach you that you can be whatever you want to be, and that's not always true with every other person. I think maybe even what Common Core is doing is that building a self-entitlement program to where, okay, we're assigning you to this because this is what you can do. They're taking advantage because a lot of kids nowadays, I feel self-entitled, that they are special. They're taught that they're special, and it's not completely always true, in my opinion.
Interesting. This is Chris. Interesting take on that, Derek, because I talked to Charlotte Iserbeat after she got her copy of the movie. This is back in September, and we talked for the better part of 45 minutes. The Common Core, she said, is an exact replica, verbatim, from the Chinese Communist education system that was being released in a county in Maryland. And Richard, I think you're more familiar with that. You've talked to her at length more than I have, but she was just furious when she saw the structure of Common Core and said it is straight out of the Communist Chinese education system from 1959. Here, how many generations later, they're trying to introduce it in the United States. And it's horrible. And the point of being the children feeling that they were entitled to a certain level of prestige or whatever the case may be completely turns the sense of responsibility and the ability to create things on your own and take responsibility for both good and bad action. That's completely thrown out the window with this.
Now this DVD, the documentary, can be obtained through Amazon. Is that the best way to go? To get.
Well, it is available on Amazon. They are limited on the number of copies they have, but you can actually get it. We would suggest going to InfoWarsShop.com, and they have it available with our first film also, where you can buy it in Blu-ray as well as a standard format.
Okay, folks, I encourage you, please, to get a copy of that and watch it. This will be the most influential documentary you have ever seen in your life, and I will guarantee that copy.
Joe, will they have any for sale there at the movie?
Oh, yes. It'll be there.
There'll be a table, and you can buy it?
There'll be a table, and they'll get a photographed copy. And if they're nice, I'll even say hello to them. You never know. Who knows, Hey, it's a time for, let's take a quick break. We'll be right back. Folks, we're still accepting calls, believe it or not. We haven't had any. I'm just absolutely...
We got one now. I'll go grab it.
We do it. Okay, we'll have a call here. What line are we on? What line? Okay, here we go. Caller, you're on the air. Your first name, where you're calling from, please.
You have a caller. To accept the call, press 1.
We got an operator. Even the operator.
I think that was Siri, wasn't it?
Hold on.
Must have been her sister.
Hold on. Did we?
Yeah, you'll have to let me grab that call. She's
okay. We got our wires crossed. Okay. All right. Now, you guys, I'm sure, were very conscious of the fact that any film like this would place you in the conspirator category, like
the tinfoil hat,
the
Illuminati.
tinfoil, the Illuminati, all that stuff where we've heard that crazy stuff before. So you guys had to walk a very, very fine line. How did you decide? And I know you did a great job of that. I mean, when you watch this, you don't think of Illuminati or anything like that. I mean, you think of it's very practical. I mean, you go through World War I, World War II. You show hard evidence. You have excellent commentators on it. How did you approach that, and how did you try to avoid that, that Illuminati syndrome?
Well, this is Richard speaking. That's pretty easy. We have a lot of good history books written by the people who were participating in history, not about them. They're biographies, autobiographies, books in their own words. One of those being Tragedy and Hope, A History of the World in Our Time, from which you learn about the legacy of Cecil Rhodes, a man who was from Britain who had created De Beers Diamond Cartel, which means Diamonds Forever now in America, because we're all bought into that. He left his will to create a secret society, which very much was about making America part of the British Empire and turning America's resources into British colonization efforts around the world.
Okay, well, we're going to take that caller right now. Hold on. Caller, you're on the air. Your first name and where you're calling from, please.
This is Lloyd from Henrietta.
Lloyd from Henrietta. How you doing, Lloyd? What's up now? What's happening?
I just want to say that I'm going to commend the movie highly. I bought the movie back about September, when it first came out. I think it was late August or early September. And I watched it, and I was very pleased with it. And I bought 5 more copies, and I gave them to my brother, my nephews, and my niece. And
well, thank you very much. I appreciate that, Lloyd.
They'll hopefully get some enlightenment from it.
Are they still talking to you, Lloyd?
What?
Are they still talking to you?
Yeah, I went over and visited them on Thanksgiving.
and they didn't poison you, right? You're still with us. Okay, good enough.
They didn't turn him in for the book burning or anything, did they?
No.
Good.
Yeah, but I really do like that movie. I'm a person that watches a lot of documentaries, and you guys put it together really, really good. And I just can't commend it high enough, and I hope everybody out there listening will go watch the thing or buy the DVD, because you'll want to watch it probably more than once.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. Lloyd, what was the reaction of the people, your family members, when they watched that movie?
I really didn't even ask them, because I'm one of those kind of people. I give them books and DVDs of other things and stuff like that, and I kind of hope that they will respond the next time I see them, because, you push people and you kind of turn them away.
Oh, absolutely. No, I understand that. Yeah, and I agree with that, because when you start asking questions, they'll say, "Oh, here comes Uncle Lloyd again." I think it's a smart move on your part. Well, thanks a lot, Lloyd. Thank you so much for calling in, and I'm sure the Chris and the gang appreciates the fact that you bought all those copies. Okay, and we have thank you very much for calling in, Lloyd. And we have about 5 more minutes left. Tell me, where is the movie now? Where do you see it going?
As far as distribution, this is Chris. We were picked up by like I said, our agent in L.A. who's done a beautiful job of marketing both the Noble Eye, Oklahoma City, 1995, and State of Mind, Psychology of Control. It is due out, we were told, January 1st. Then the distributor moved it back ahead to Christmas. On 23 different what they call VOD platforms, video on demand platforms, including Netflix and Hulu.
Wow!
And we have Time Warner Cable, Cox Communications. Yeah, it's absolutely astounding. The only market we weren't able to get into is the Chinese market, but it is going worldwide through these 23 VOD platforms. So people can watch it on their iPhones, their Kindle, their tablets. I mean, and download it within a matter of about 20 seconds. The going rate we were told was $6.95. And they're going to have it right there, and they could actually save it to their hard drive.
How many languages do you have it, subtitled in?
We have not actually gone with the subtitle route yet, but it is closed captioning, so we are going to be able to break into the hearing impaired market too, which is actually a lot of people aren't aware of this. It's huge.
It's 10% of your audience out there. Yeah, are hearing impaired, exactly. At least.
So that's where we're going, to answer your question, Joe. And the distributor actually got back to us through our agent and said, "Look, please keep us in mind the next time you guys put out another movie." That speaks volumes of the work of Kevin and Richard and Matt and the rest of the guys on the crew. And they loved the first one, so they decided to pick up 2 on the same option.
Well, as far as the quality is concerned, you couldn't have a better, higher quality movie. There's nothing about it that. But it's MGM style. I mean, it's incredibly well done. It's very, very tasteful. This is an ethereal question. This is going to be very difficult to answer, and I am going to apologize even asking for it. What do you expect will happen as a result of this movie? What do you did you have any expectations?
Go ahead, Richard. Do you want to answer that for Kevin?
Yeah, this is Richard speaking. Our only expectation would be that people watch it with an open mind, and that maybe they start to think about habits that they could repurpose toward their survival. Because the way they control us is they get us to participate in habits that have nothing to do with our family, our friends, or any of our thriving and surviving in this world. They get us to participate in conspicuous consumption. They get us to give up family time to get sales when they're not even sales. They raise the prices and then artificially lower them. I mean, people are being played by the psychology of control, and the way that they can learn their way out of it is through any of the pieces of media that we create. But specifically, if you want to get in at the top of the iceberg and just, peek in there before you get into too deep, state of mind psychology of control is why we, all got together and participated in this project, because we feel it's a moral imperative to share this information with anyone who wants to see it.
Well, for example, by virtue of the fact that I saw this movie, I've had friends who saw the movie and said, Joe, you have to have these guys on. They're coming in. We knew you were coming in Tulsa, so here you are on the radio program. Hopefully this will spark additional interest. I mean, I can see that venue. I can see that you say, well, this is what we're going to do. We want to get on so many radio programs. We want to get in print. We want to get on television, or whatever the case may be, YouTube and whatever. Did you have any methodology or any way of forecasting what you would be doing and how this thing would gain momentum, other than just going out there and sort of crossing your fingers that people will watch it and learn something?
Good. Yes, good question. In a nutshell, I know we're limited on time.
We got 1 minute, right?
We went ahead and first movie we really hit the film markets or the film festivals. And we were able to get entered into 10, Best Picture in 4, finalists in 2. That's what got us to the next level of being able to get distributorship. And that's where we're talking literally millions of people now that we're going to be able to reach this. So we don't go the old style of print media anymore. That's in the past.
Right.
We're going high-tech, high-def, instant download, and we're going to be able to reach a lot of people around the world. How
about YouTube, Chris? Can they see it on YouTube at all, or no?
No, sir. We're actually taking it down off of YouTube and then going by way of Netflix and Hulu. Alex there's an extended interview on YouTube on the InfoWars channel with the film crew, including Richard, myself, Austin Green, and James Lane. But that's the only version of the
Now, you did say that
we're out of time. I'm sorry. We're out of time. The last few seconds, would you please sum up when, where, how, and who you guys are so we can conclude without cutting you off?
Chris Emery. I'm one of the co-producers of State of Mind Psychology of Control.
Okay. I'm sorry. Go ahead, Rich.
Richard Grove. I'm a custodian of tragedyandhope.com.
And my name is Kevin Cole. I'm a co-writer of State of Mind. I work with tragedyandhope.com as well.